And welcome, YouTube viewers. It's our weekly Wednesday live stream. And thanks for tuning in. Gather up your friends, foes, and neutrals. We will handle your questions. We will allow you to steer the conversation, especially if you've got some interesting topics to talk about. We will talk about how the U.S. has become an unrecognizable place. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you'll disagree. We'll probably bring up economics, as my thumbnail today did feature indeed the S&P 1-year chart is what I was posing with for the thumbnail. And I wasn't expecting stocks to decline on news from the Federal Reserve, but indeed they did. So I guess I'll start off by talking about that. And of course, solar activity does indeed impact economics, right? So, yes. So Jerome Powell, Federal Reserve Chairman, has stated that he sees some upside risk to inflation, which is ultimately the Fed chairman beating around the bush about the idea that perhaps interest rates are going to go even higher. So Elon Musk should be outraged by this, as I saw him complaining about a month ago about how interest rates should be lowered at once. And of course, the Fed's job is to, well, one of their jobs at least, is to ensure the sovereignty of United States financial transactions, because legal tender laws require that we accept United States currency known as dollars for all debts, public and private. So that's an important feature of the U.S. economy, as legal tender laws are what require you to transact in the dollar. In other words, you're allowed to trade. You can accept payment in soybeans, or you can accept payment in silver bars or gold collectible coins or whatever you want. You can accept payment in grass clippings if you like. However, if you demand that somebody pay off a debt using something besides U.S. dollars, you've committed a crime. You violated legal tender laws. So that is one of the complaints that people who understand economics have about fiat currencies, right? But the good news is, folks, and it remains the same. It remains the same. China's not taking over the world as the world's leading economic superpower. It's just not. It's a paper tiger. It's held together by dental floss and bubblegum on its best day, and held together by absolutely nothing on its worst day. China outright lies about its economy, about the state of corruption, about the state of governance within its country. It's constantly trying to cover up the things that are going on in its country, which is a loosely held federation of states that really can't get out of their own way. And of course, the Chinese Communist Party can't get out of its own way either, because it is it's not too easy to govern that much stuff. That many populations of rather inhomogeneous groups of people, right? So, that's part of what makes the U.S. Governable, is the concept of federalism, right? Because ultimately you are under the auspices, you're in the jurisdiction of your local government, then your county government, then your state government, and then finally the federal government. So, most of the time it's not really, you're not interacting with the federal government most of the time. And by the way, this video has been demonetized for your viewing displeasure. So we've already appealed that. And YouTube, let's go to Warp 6 in remonetizing this video. Engage. All right, so make sure you leave us comments, folks, because we want to know who's here. We want to see all our favorite familiar faces and our favorite unfamiliar faces in the chat. Thanks for leaving comments, Smash Staff and Mr. Bordages. So yes, many stocks are down as a result of the Federal Reserve announcing that it's considering raising interest rates further. And I think the Federal Reserve has hit a wall. I don't think if it raises rates one more quarter of a basis point, in other words, 0.25%, if it does it one more time, I would suspect that is the absolute end of raising rates. Now, the Federal Reserve is not charged with being responsible for the U.S. stock market. That is not the way it's supposed to work at all. However, the Fed and the stock market are well aware of the implications to the things that especially the Fed chairman says, but also even the heads of the individual Federal Reserve banks. Raising interest rates is a thing that big corporations don't like. So, real estate agents don't like it because it lowers the price of housing. It lowers the price of houses, I should say. So, the higher the interest rates are, the harder it is to sell a house, which means the lower the price has to be, because interest rates, while the prime lending rate which is what the Federal Reserve raises and lowers, that's actually for international and corporate loans, but those affect all of everything else. The reason big corporations don't like high interest rates is because they're constantly buying back their own stock. They're borrowing money and investing in their own stock, making the gamble that their own stock is going to go up a higher percentage than the current rate of inflation. If your stock's going to increase 10% and it only costs you 3% to borrow, then you've gained 7% over that given period of time. It's just basic math, folks. So that's a little bit about what goes on with the Fed. Corporations want to purchase their own stock, and they also want to pay people in options as opposed to salaries, not just because of the tax implications for those individuals, but also because of the share price. So this is part of the reason why Fed interest rates affect share prices so much. Again, because, of course, investing in your own stock. And I would do it. One day I may have stock. I may want to do the same thing. At that point, I may want interest rates lower than they are. But in any case, again, let's get back to the good news. The good news is that the U.S. is still the world superpower. It's still far freer than everybody else. And even though it might be unrecognizable to many of you, it's unrecognizable to me. It's a complete disaster, ultimately. And guess what? The rest of the major first world nations in the world are worse because their currency is even more inflated than the U.S. dollar. So whether it's the euro, and I mean the whole Eurozone here, not individual countries. Individual countries are way better off, like Germany. Probably way better off. I don't really worry about the economics of Germany too much, although I did consider moving there in 2009. The yen is a much more highly inflated currency than the U.S. dollar, and the yuan. The yuan is the most pathetic of all because, again, the Chinese Communist Party outright lies about pretty much everything that goes on in China. Now let's talk about Lahaina because it rhymes with China. China Lahaina. And did you know what the average price of a house was in Lahaina in 2020? I'll give you a moment to comment on that one. The average price of a house in Lahaina. You're going to be amazed. I didn't expect it to be anywhere near in the realm of this. I wouldn't have guessed anything even close to this because in Hawaii, things are very expensive because there's not a lot of stuff made there. So they're sending stuff on ships and planes, and that makes it pricey. It's in the middle of nowhere in the South Pacific. So it's not exactly easy to get a bottle of Evian to China. It's coming from a spring in France. That's kind of far away. And thanks for leaving a comment, Solane B. Hope you're feeling better today. The average cost of a house in Lahaina in 2020 was $600,000. Any guesses on what it was before the place burned down? I'll delay once again and put up some different solar imagery here for you to cuddle up by the fire with us. Let's show 335 angstroms because it's one of the rare wavelengths that we don't show often on the channel. The average cost of a house in Lahaina preceding the fire was $1 million. $1 million. So were the fires a real estate scam? Were the fires directed energy weapons? How many people just found out about directed energy weapons in the past day or year or decade? Well, they've been around for decades. There have been strategic aircraft flying around since the 1970s, and it was widely known about since the 1980s, with spooky directed energy weapons built into the nose cones. Why? To shoot down intercontinental ballistic nuclear weapons. This is not anything new, folks. I mean, basically the day a laser was created, a directed energy weapon was created because it can be used to burn something. So, yeah. So this is not new. This is not a valid theory, as it does lack motive. But, I mean, you don't need to have these crazy ideas. In other words, horses exist. Sometimes there are holes in things. Therefore, unicorns poked holes in things, right? Like, that's the logical leap that is occurring in this truly idiotic idea that directed energy weapons were utilized to burn Maui. It's so idiotic. I mean, yeah, somebody decided to burn Hawaii from space using a satellite or something. Yeah, okay, that's a real logical claim. That's like saying, let's see, Ireland exists, and gold exists. Therefore, leprechauns are hoarding gold in Ireland under rainbows. It's a non sequitur, folks. It doesn't follow. It makes no sense. It's not a valid argument. It's idiotic. Never blame a conspiracy on that which is more likely attributed to normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill stupidity and ignorance. Now, again, it could be a real estate scam. It could be arson. It could be a self-crashing car that self-crashed and then caught on fire. It could be so many things. But, yeah, unicorn theory, Bruce. Unicorn theory. Horses exist. Sometimes we find holes in things. Therefore, unicorns poked holes in things. That is the equivalent theory for this idea that directed energy weapons were used to burn Hawaii. Because, I don't know, because the military personnel who are in charge of directed energy weapons, they're also thinking of investing in real estate in Hawaii. What's your motive? You know, you have to have motive, opportunity, and means for a crime to happen. So, you know, it's more likely that some real estate agents decided to burn Maui and then try to cash in, because homeowners now who have nothing, as you know, as far as their buildings that have burned to the ground, are now getting calls to rapidly sell their properties below market value. Sounds a little scammy, I would say, but in any case, let's leave that subject in the dust, hopefully to soon be in the dustbin of history, along with certain non-pharmaceutical interventions for the world's favorite viral agents. All right, so what else do we have here? And thanks for leaving comments. Also, Mr. Minas, Mr. LaFollette, and, of course, Skywatch Time-Lapse. So, yes, I mean, you should definitely have a disaster plan. You should definitely have a bunker. You should have a bunker. You know why you should have a bunker? Let me explain why you should have a bunker. Because people. Nature is very unlikely to cause you to need a bunker unless you're already in an incredibly dangerous location. Like, I don't know, the base of a volcano or something, in which case a bunker is a terrible idea there too. But, it might be wise to have a bunker to protect you from the zombie hordes that could erupt at any moment. I mean, it takes about 48 hours with no gas or electricity for a city to turn into Mad Max type zombie apocalypse style scenario where people go from civilized humans to trying to eat each other in approximately 48 hours. Ask any special forces about it. They'll agree. They'll probably also agree in our third top seller at our Redbubble shop, which is Universum Liberate. By the way, the Galactic Federation Special Forces is always recruiting new folks. You don't have to be retired military, although it would be appreciated. So yeah, I mean, definitely have a bunker. You know what I mean? Like have all of the things that you need to continue on with your lifestyle if all the infrastructure collapses. If you have the ability to put a well on your property and you've already got city water, put a well there. If you have the ability to put solar panels on your roof and you've already got electricity from the power company, put solar panels on your roof and sell electricity back to the power company. If you've already got additional electrical generating systems like wind power on your location, set it up. Get battery backups. I mean, wouldn't it be nice to run your fridge if your power went out in the summer so that your food doesn't all spoil? Or to, run your 3 large aquariums? I mean, we've got a 29-gallon, a 55-gallon, and a 75-gallon aquarium. And if the power went out for an extended period of time, it would be nice to have a battery backup. By the way, you can find some of our shopping choices. We put up the Anchor products on our Amazon shop at amazon.com/shop/smashomash. Links on the homepage at smashomash.com. And let's take a moment to thank the Smash team for making these videos more likely to remain visible, existent, and free for all to view. If you head to the homepage at smashomash.com/smashteam, you'll find our Twitch stream running most of the time, as well as links to the Redbubble shop, to the Hemp Lucid shop, Amazon, Instagram, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and so forth. So that might be a thing to check out. Might be a good idea. And of course, there are the last couple of hours from the ever-popular GOES 16 SUVi. So stocks down on the hawkish statements from Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman. And again, the Fed is not supposed to be in charge of the market, but it certainly can be. I didn't really understand monetary policy back in the day when I was a day trader. I was a tech specialist in the late 90s and early 2000s. My portfolio fared a lot better than the S&P and the NASDAQ. But that's because I was on it. I wanted to be a day trader. However, some investments got a little bit longer than anticipated. So I became what you would call a swing trader, where your long positions are supposed to be shorter than a week or two. And that is exactly what happened. I never used options. I never shorted a single stock. It was not necessary. It still wouldn't be necessary. I probably still would not trade on margin in any way. I don't see the point to it. I think it's simpler than that. For example, and of course this is not investment advice, folks. This is just for novelty purposes. One of the things that I and many other people used to do is trade dead cats. When a stock goes way down, it usually bounces back up a bit. And if you can try to time that bounce back up, that's one of the ways that we buy low and sell high. And the term comes from dropping a dead cat from a skyscraper. If you drop a dead cat from the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, when it hits the ground, it will bounce, even if it's dead. And that's what it means. So even a stock that's going out of business, it will still bounce, at least after the initial massive downturn in its share price. Doesn't work every time, but many people are millionaires from trading only dead cats back in the late 90s. Now, the other technique, which is like extremely, it's also extremely well documented, is sector trading. So for example, if an entire sector is down, let's say the retail sector, right? You've got, who are the big players? You've got Walmart, Target, and whoever else in that sector, right? Let's say the financial fundamentals like earnings per share, price to earnings ratio, let's say all that stuff is in line, and then one of the companies comes out with bad news. Target's CEO gets indicted for misleading investors, right? That's going to cause the entire retail sector to tank. And at that point, Walmart will tank along with Target, and that is no reason to not support your position in Walmart. This has to do with many factors, one of which is that the market always overreacts to bad news and underreacts to good news, but it's also because of index funds. So there are funds out there that are just for only retail stocks. And so for obvious reasons, the industry leaders will be represented in those index funds. And of course, the one drops, they reduce their position for the overall exposure risk to be dropped and so forth. So there's a little bit of financial wonking for you. It's a standard thing on our weekly Wednesday live streams. And of course, like I was saying earlier, the past 3 years have certainly made the United States unrecognizable. Now, I don't see any chance that it's going to be a worse place to invest than any place else. I mean, every place else is a worse place to invest. The U.S. is still much freer than everybody else. And of course, the federal government, again, largely doesn't interact with you. So, it's people really are very concerned about like who the president is, what's going on in the U.S. legislature and all that stuff. But I thought it became painfully obvious that governors are largely in control of tanking the economy, ruining your life, causing all sorts of unnecessary death and destruction as a result of terrible bureaucratic decisions. So, but that's just part of it. I mean, another thing to understand about the current state of affairs is that the same way a rising tide raises all ships, rampant crime, corruption, a lack of accountability, complete disparity in the way justice is enforced. All of these things, otherwise known as crime and corruption, sinks all ships. So, that is and shall be an ongoing issue, I suspect, going forward, because what's going to suddenly change? I mean, I have never seen as many scammers as I have in the past year. The amount of scammers that I've seen in the past year are just off the charts. The amount of greed, waste, fraud, and abuse is just at unprecedented levels. I've never seen anything like it. It's like a complete evaporation of any consideration of ethics. It's pretty horrifying. All right, let me get to your comments here. I see there are a number of them. And thanks for stopping by, Mr. Hamilton and Kimberly Citizen E. Nichols and K. Ryan. All right, let me see what we have here. I just want to take a look at these and see if we've got anything that we ought to bring up as far as news stories and so forth. So let's put up some different solar imagery here once again. Let's put up a composite. We haven't shown one of those for a while. Here's 304, 211, and 171. All right, while that spools up here, I'm just going to break out your comments. If you're new to the channel, congratulations on realizing it exists. We're frankly surprised that you found it. And I'm not kidding or exaggerating or being sarcastic in any way when I say that. This channel started out as alarmist fake news weather reports, where we were like, oh my God, it's going to rain. Get your kayak ready, folks. No, get your kayak. Make sure you have your helmets available because you might be riding your kayak down your steps into your living room and then kayaking down the street, folks. No, my God. And then we got to like 200 subscribers just doing that. And I was like, oh, maybe it is worth it to make a YouTube channel. Then we realized that there's a huge niche in the content that we cover. That's why we cover what we cover every day: space weather, volcanoes and earthquakes, and earth weather. I realized back about 20 years ago that it's too easy to forecast the earth weather. It's just a matter of understanding atmospheric physics. And that was when I decided to take on the challenge of one of the harder things out there, forecasting space weather. And by the way, what's going on with the Corona Hole high-speed stream? It looked like it was arriving earlier. I almost forgot about it. With all of the exciting news stories to cover. Just kidding, folks. Those news stories are whack. All right, so, we've seen a strengthening of the fields here. And the negative BZ is now moving back toward the zero line here. So really, we haven't seen a very legit signal. Just a weak coronal hole wind stream. Look, there's the high-speed portion of it. Not even really accompanied by an increase in the plasma temperature there, which is the green line at the bottom. That's barely even an uptick. That is not the coronal hole wind stream. These are not the droids for which you are looking. That is barely even a signal. So, coronal hole wind stream not here yet. I thought it was arriving at about midday today, and it doesn't look like that's the case. 318 kilometers per second is certainly not the kind of solar wind speed that we would associate with a high-speed coronal hole wind stream. By the way, if you're a collector of Hawaiian shirts like I am, you can get this at our Amazon shop. Once again, it's amazon.com/shop/smashomash. I've been collecting Hawaiian shirts for over 20 years. I remember the first one that I bought, I think ever, was actually from Kohl's, and it was kind of like a shiny, like a clubbing shirt. It was all like shiny, and it was like blue, and it had palm trees. It was totally sweet. If I could find that design again, I would rebuy it. But this one I think might be my favorite ever. It's called the Kahuna or something, and it's just such a good mix of colors. It's got the orange pineapple colors and the pink. Are those irises? I don't know. I can't identify flowers on a shirt, but this one's one of my favorite ones that I ever own. And by the way, if you're wondering about the thickness of the material, it's like a micron thin, folks. It feels like silk. It's extremely, extremely thin, as you would want to wear in a tropical environment. All right, so let me, I'm trying to get through your comments here. I apologize for the rants, but after all, that's what these streams are for. All right, what do we have? Yeah, so people in Hawaii are a little bit mad that, there may be some sort of a real estate scam going on, that, maybe arsonists burn the town down on purpose in order to cash in. Maybe Mick Fleetwood burned the town down, right? Maybe he just tried to burn down his own restaurant and whoops, it got a little windy and burned the whole town down. I don't suspect so. I'm just kidding here, folks. Mick Fleetwood did not seem too happy that his Lahaina restaurant burned down. Might be a pretty good restaurant. I mean, indeed, if the average house price was $1 million a couple of weeks ago, I suspect there are some pretty nice restaurants there, wouldn't you say? Imagine what the mortgages are like. They're probably, I don't know, what, $12,000 a month or something? Ah, yes, trying to dig a well where there was one years ago. That's a wise move indeed. Knowing where the water table is, if you are fortunate enough to actually own real estate, which is, by the way, one of our goals at smashomash.com. It's to fund our nonprofit organization and build an observatory, and lots of stuff is way behind, partially because of the state of the economy and partially because the state of extremely, extremely unscrupulous employers. So, you may not know this about me, but I have employment PTS. Yeah, I have post-traumatic stress from employers because I have been outright lied to by my last 6 employers in all kinds of different ways. And I mean, it's I don't like it. I don't like it. I am setting the record every second of my life for the past 20 years for the most underpaid human. My pay to talent ratio is probably a world record. Skill, talent, and training. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. If you have all kinds of additional skills that could be, used, I don't see anybody really caring. Everybody is in their comfort zone. They want everybody in a nice box because they want to make all kinds of assumptions about you, whether they're true or not, and then they just make terrible assumptions that are not correct about your capabilities. And they just stay in their comfort zone, completely aloof to reality. Whoops. Don't you love it when you make forecasts that are wildly correct, and then years later, people act like you never made the forecasts, attempting to gaslight you and failing? That has been a common theme in the last 2 decades for me. It has been ridiculous. A ridiculous 20 years. At least I had the opportunity to develop and cultivate massive numbers of skills in that time. So hopefully you've been able to do the same. Hopefully you're not a slave laborer. All right, what else do we have here? And of course, let us know if there's something you want to talk about in the comments. Hit us up. All super chats, as stated in the title. Wherever it is. It's somewhere. Down there. All super chats are always addressed. And Kimberly, why can't you get into your attic? And I do believe I have reached the bottom of the comments here. So make sure you leave us more if you are lurking. Drop us a line. If you're new to the channel, make sure you tell us where you're from. Don't forget to press the share button. Tell your friends and foes about the channel. And let's see what other stories we've got here. So let me see if I can get a quote here from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. I'm just going to briefly put on my headset here to make sure I don't accidentally play some audio and cause a copyright infringement. I found my thrill. Don't be a dill. All right, so CPI, Consumer Price Index, that is. What you're learning here through Braille. You're learning through Braille what the Fed considers acceptable rates of inflation versus what the Fed considers unacceptable rates of inflation. So if inflation was 1.5%, the Fed would cut interest rates because that is too low for banks to thrive. And 4.1% is too high. So the Fed is looking for inflation rates there somewhere in between 2%, as we know, probably something like 2.5 to 3.5%. And of course, the idea that 2% inflation is better than 1% inflation is better than 0% inflation that's banker talk. I mean, that might be superior for bankers, but for the average person, most people would prefer for their dollars to remain the purchasing power. Otherwise, you have to have it invested in certain places, and of course, there are risks. So, yeah, Peter Schiff and I are on the same page when it comes to inflation. I don't believe the nonsense that it is good for the average Joe for inflation to be higher as opposed to lower at any point. All right, so the latest increase to the Fed funds rate between 5.25 and 5%, the highest level in more than 22 years. And by the way, I didn't bring this up before. The reason that I don't think the Fed is going to be able to raise interest rates much higher is because of one simple thing. The U.S. government likes to spend a lot of money, and it has to pay the interest on that debt. The higher the interest rate goes, the higher the amount of debt interest that the U.S. government has to pay off. And the last thing the U.S. government wants to do is reduce spending. I mean, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you are in favor of massive spending. All right? Now, there are a bunch of people out there who are libertarians, many of whom first heard the word libertarian about 14 seconds before the 2016 election, where they ran Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, two guys that couldn't answer the most basic questions about fiscal responsibility, limited government, etc. So they got housed. In other words, yeah, Gary Johnson, he got housed. And I had people unfriend me over saying, dude, Gary Johnson's not a libertarian. So he would be able to answer the most basic questions about fiscal responsibility, limited government, etc. if he were a libertarian. He couldn't. He's not a libertarian. Cheers. Let's give out my recipe for electrolyte beverages. You want to know what I drink when I go on a bicycle ride? So, when I ride the bike, I don't just drink plain water. You can't survive a long ride on plain water. You need electrolytes. And to make those even stronger, I add something else as well. Now, if you want to get fancy, you can put a little, like a pinch, a tiny amount of baking soda into your water bottle, all right? I don't usually do that. I'm not usually too concerned about that. What that will do is that will actually lower the acidity a little bit, and that will actually give you a little bit higher pain threshold. Well, not really a higher pain threshold. You'll have a lower level of felt pain, because as the water gets into your cells, that baking soda is going to reduce the acidity of lactic acid buildup. So, when you're like doing a thing and you feel the burn, you feel that muscular burning sensation, that's lactic acid building up in your muscles because you're getting insufficient oxygen. If you have some baking soda, it gives you wings. Yes, that is one of the ingredients in Red Bull. So yeah, that's a little trick. You can mess with it. Put a little bit of baking soda in your water bottle. But I don't usually do this, folks, because it can make it a little weird. You might find yourself working out to a level beyond where you're used to getting to, because it changes your perception of how hard your efforts are. So what's in my water bottle is some kosher salt and some lime juice. It does two things. So the kosher salt, and you can add more electrolytes than that also. You can buy little packs of pre-mixed electrolytes, or buy your own electrolytes in bulk and mix them yourself. Calcium, magnesium, sodium, and chloride. Put all those together. But I just use kosher salt and lime juice. The kosher salt is obviously an electrolyte. The lime juice, what it does is it increases the effective surface area of your stomach. So when you chug water, a lot of that water just sits in your stomach. You may notice that, like on a hot day, if you just chug 18 ounces of water or something like that, you'll feel it sloshing around in your stomach for an extended period of time. The lime juice will reduce that. It'll reduce the amount of time that the water stays in your stomach. It increases the effective surface area. There is, what is it? Can't remember what it is now. There's a chemical component of lime juice that causes water to absorb more efficiently. So yeah, just kosher salt and water. You can add some sugar there as well if you want to have some energy actually added in. And basically it should taste somewhat like Gatorade. That's all. You know about how Gatorade tastes, right? Just put enough salt and enough lime juice in there to get the same tartness and saltiness of Gatorade, and then add some sugar. You don't want it to be any sweeter than that. In fact, you might want it less sweet. The hotter the day, the worse a really sweet energy drink will taste. And that has to do with the Brix ratio, which is, or the Brix number, I guess it is. And that's just the amount of sugar in an aqueous solution. So a drink like orange juice, if you work out really hard on a really hot day and you just chug a plain glass of full-strength orange juice, it's going to upset your stomach because there's too much sugar in there. It'll make your stomach pucker up, basically, and you might vomit out that orange juice. So if you dilute it to half or 1/3 strength with some water, you'll find that it works much better. It'll actually absorb the sugar more quickly because of that high amount of sugar in that orange juice. So that's a little performance boost for you. If you only drink plain water, folks, you're going to eventually sweat out your electrolytes. And that is a recipe for disaster. So, man, oh man, check out the filaments on the closest star here. They are some pretty serious filaments there. Let's actually we're going to take a look at 304 angstroms here. Those are some pretty burly ones. After the character known as Randy Bobandy, otherwise known as the Cheeseburger Pirate or something. All right. Yes, all right. Stingy McStingy Pants Face agrees about the baking soda. Yeah, Kimberly, the thing about baking soda soothing heartburn is that it will reduce the acidity of your lower esophagus. All right. That will ease the symptoms of your heartburn. However, the real cure, it might sound counterintuitive, is apple cider vinegar. So, the reason you get heartburn, folks, is because stomach acid typically you get heartburn because of having too full of a stomach. People think that spicy food causes it or something. And while spicy food does cause a little bit of neuropathy in your digestive tract, which can cause your esophageal sphincter, which is the ring-shaped muscle in between your esophagus and your stomach, to not have as much muscle tension. That is the mechanism that causes heartburn. So, when you have heartburn, it's because acid is welling back up into your esophagus. It's very bad for you because your esophagus it doesn't have the kind of cells that your stomach has. It's not designed, it hasn't evolved to handle the hydrochloric acid that your stomach produces. So the real trick, folks, is get some organic apple cider vinegar, shake up that bottle, take a swig out of it, and then drink some water with it. Otherwise, it'll be irritating. But the way that works is that it creates muscle tension on your esophageal sphincter. It basically makes it pucker up. So the same way if you bite into a lemon, your lips want to pucker up, your esophageal sphincter does the same thing. So it helps to keep the acid in. And also the apple cider vinegar is great for your gut flora. This is another reason to not consume things like calcium carbonate antacids. Those are terrible for your gut flora. You want everything below your esophagus, you want it to be acidic. Your upper GI tract, it should be acidic, not basic. So if you eat Tums all the time, you'll be murdering your gut flora. This is how you end up with leaky gut syndrome. One of the many ways you end up with leaky gut syndrome. If you alkalize your upper digestive tract, that is a very inhospitable environment for the bacteria. So you want your skin to be alkaline, you want your mouth to be alkaline, and you want your gut to be acidic. So don't puke on yourself. When you puke on yourself, you're going to get the bacteria from your gut all over yourself, which is really bad to have on your skin or in your mouth. So, the same bacteria that are beneficial in your digestive system are terrible as far as rotting your teeth and causing all kinds of infections like strep and staph and skin infections and so forth. This is one of the many reasons why those non-pharmaceutical face coverings that that many people are still idiotically wearing. One of the many reasons why those are bad, because it creates an acidic environment right in front of your face because of the carbon dioxide in your exhalation gases, and the reasons for the nose are so endless. Don't you miss the days when if you walked into a convenience store with a mask on, you wouldn't be surprised if the guy behind the counter pulled out an AK-47 and said, "Take that mask off"? I miss those days. Those were the good old days, right? So yeah, those same bacteria, like next time you're at a store and you see a bottle of probiotics, look up the bacteria that are in that probiotics. Don't break open the pill and start rubbing those on your skin. All right? Your gut contains stuff that does not belong in your mouth, on your face, on your skin, anywhere. I used to get strep and staph throat. Fun fact, I used to be a cigarette smoker back in the mid-90s. And in 1996, I got strep throat for the last time ever. And the reason for that is because I discovered that, I guess I can share this home remedy. Hey, congratulations, you're going to get this one on the live stream. This is one that I don't give out very often because I don't want Big Pharma to take me out. So if you have a toothache, if you have any kind of gingivitis, if you have a sore throat, take a mixture of kosher salt, 1 part kosher salt and 1 part baking soda, and put it in, take like an old vitamin bottle or something like that, and Fill it halfway with kosher salt and the other halfway with baking soda, and then shake it up to get a 50-50 mixture of kosher salt and baking soda. Then take a little bit of that, put it in your hand like a nickel-sized little circle in your hand. Put it in your mouth. Take some water. Put that in your mouth. Swish it around like a mouthwash. Gargle with it. Now you've alkalized your mouth, pharynx, and larynx. And in that environment, the bacteria that are harmful to you cannot survive. So the same thing with your gut. You're going to kill the bacteria if you consume calcium carbonate antacids and other antacid type products. They're terrible for your gut. Your gut is the largest portion of your immune system in addition to your skin. So, I mean, for obvious reasons, your skin is like keeping stuff out of your internal body cavity. So, but your skin and all of those microorganisms, and there are pounds and pounds of them in your gut, those are the two most substantial portions in terms of immune system to body mass ratio of your immune system. So having those things in good working order are the key. If you've got any kind of chronic type stomach conditions, having an acidic gut and a basic upper digestive tract, the part above your stomach, that is the way to go. You get a toothache, chew a Tums and then spit it out. You might be surprised at how well it works. All right, so let's see what else can we rant about here. I'm on CNBC.com now, and I don't know, what do we have? And let me just reiterate, China is shattered, China is a paper tiger, and China is a threat to China, not to you. All right? China is not a threat to you. It's just, I don't know, it's propaganda that China is dangerous. I've been saying it for years. These are facts, folks. I mean, do all the research you like. If you prove me wrong, let me know in the comments. And don't just leave a link, all right? Like, if you're arguing, fun fact, if you're arguing with somebody on the internet and you just post a link there, learn to code, boomer. Learn to code. That is not an argument. Posting a link is not an argument. I've seen many, 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 many times people post a link to an article that they just read the clickbaity headline to, not realizing that it's saying the exact opposite of what their argument actually is. I mean, dude, read the article and leave the article in your online argument and explain why you think that supports your case. Otherwise, it's a non sequitur. It doesn't follow. And by the way, if you're like making YouTube videos about stuff like space weather and cosmology and geophysics, you know who you are, and you're putting up links to science papers that, one, have nothing to do with, or two, directly refute your theories that you're trying to convince your viewers of, as you try to gaslight them that you've been right the whole time about everything, and the astronomers and cosmologists are all idiots, but I'm smart even though I don't know anything about these subjects. Look at this paper. Look, I've put up a link to a science paper that I clearly don't understand, or I wouldn't have put it up as evidence to my idiotic hypothesis. If you're doing that, it's embarrassing. I mean, look, there is comedic value, but if you expect to have credibility, you know who you are. If you expect to have credibility and you're going to put up paper after paper after paper that doesn't support your hypothesis or that directly refutes it, I'm going to be done after, I don't know, a half dozen of those. I'm going to go, well, clearly does not understand the fundamental sciences that are associated with this paper, so I'm done. I don't have time to go and read science papers that back up extraordinary theories that lack the extraordinary evidence to back them up. Extraordinary Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. If you ain't got it, I'm not interested. Why would you use a directed energy weapon when you could use flint and tinder? It's a non sequitur, folks. It does not follow. Maybe, let's see, what else could have started the fires? I should bring up my conversation I was having with Mr. Bordages last night. Mr. Bordages and I were having a hilarious conversation because he's got pals. I don't think he minds if I bring this up. He's got pals who, are very interested in directed energy weapons. We just heard of them today, even though they've been around since the 70s, to prevent strategic nuclear weapons attacks. They're very into this kind of stuff. But why would you use all of this complicated stuff? It's very windy. It's very dry from non-indigenous grasses and other dead vegetation. You don't need a laser to start a fire, folks. Hold on. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so check this out, folks. I'm going to show you an old Indian trick. Indian, Native American, Original American, whatever they're called this week. I'm going to share with you an old Indian trick. Now, you might know some exotic ways to start fires. All right? I'm going to show you a thing that Indians have been doing, or Native Americans. Some of them prefer to be called Indians. Did you know that? So check this out. I'm going to show you an old Indian trick used to start a fire. See that? It's a Bic. By the way, we're not sponsored by Bic, although we would consider it. I like their disposable razors as well as their lighters. They're the best. But check it out. I'm going to show you this again. See that? Watch. Bow. Bow. An old Indian trick used to start fires, folks. Man, it looks like it's getting awfully bright over there in the western limb, the northwestern limb. The area that I said earlier this morning was the most likely place to produce solar flares. Who knew? Did you know that solar forecasting is easy if you understand heliophysics? It's pretty easy. Did you know that we recently published the abstract for my crap theory about what underlies the solar sunspot cycles? If you haven't been to smashomash.com/smashteam, Gold Smash Team members, you may want to read that over. I'm not done with the paper yet. I broke my brain on Monday gathering a bunch of the evidence that I need in order to prove my crap theory. It stands for CRAP. I can't tell you what it stands for because it's going to give it away. But Smash Team members know what evil lurks in the heart of the sun. Smash Team members know. And yeah, so if you're gold level Smash Team, go check it out. I even included like most of the first two figures. Figure 1 and Figure 2 are on there, as well as the abstract and the first point about a plausible mechanism that underlies the solar sunspot cycles. It's pretty serious. And of course, I actually published information about this quite a while ago. We just ran into a whole series of terrible roadblocks, one of which was caused by my most recent employer, who will remain unnamed. However, the word con, non-coincidentally, is indeed in the name of their organization. The word con, right there, in the name of the company. So, probably just a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. Maybe it's a coincidence. So, is there an actual flare going on here? I don't think it is. That's just increased X-ray output there. Oh no, there has been a little flaring there. Nice. Yeah, 94 angstroms is good times, folks. Good times. And by the way, that green-colored sun right there, 94 angstroms, it's extreme ultraviolet, so it's a false color. It's not really that color. You can't see that color. You can't even see that wavelength from the ground. You got to be above the mesosphere to be able to see that. As extreme ultraviolet light is filtered out by the time it reaches the mesosphere, I think it is. It doesn't make it to the stratosphere, just like X-rays don't make it to the stratosphere. So that's why the SDO takes those images. Also the GOES 16 and the GOES 18 look at 94 angstroms. And yeah, there's an uptick of solar flaring happening here, just as you may have come to expect, both especially in the northwest, but also the northeast limb, and an area there in the south central region, also the north central region. So the uptick in solar flares here does indeed continue, although no major changes. Here's the one-day chart. And while the background level is still at B, or very close to a B or C, the average X-ray output there is still in the C range because of those C-class flares. So some underperforming happening here, but a significant uptick in the past few days. Some new sunspot groups showing up there. Let's. I'm going to take a look at some other websites here. Actually, let's take a brief look. I'm going to just show some graphics here from CNBC. Whoops. That's the wrong browser, as I'm only displaying the small browser today. All right, so here's what we showed on our thumbnail today. It is the S&P 500 one-year chart. The S&P down a little bit today, down 33 points, 0.76% there to 4404.33. Here is the NASDAQ. And again, this is not investment advice, folks, but I hate the NASDAQ as the company is represented. May include crime syndicates. I'll just say that. There may be some crime syndicates there represented in the NASDAQ. Some very unfortunate corporations who mislead investors and get away with it apparently forever. One of the many features of a banana republic: rampant corporatism, fraud, corruption, a lack of accountability, and a non-level playing field as far as the justice system. So again, that's not investment advice, that's just my opinion on all of the junkety junkware represented by that index, the NASCRAP Composite. We won't talk about the most heavily represented organizations. Here come the 20 largest stocks in the U.S. It's the Dow. Yeah, the Dow. There is your one-year chart of the Dow, and these value stocks are looking a lot less overbought to me. Let me just reiterate, that's not investment advice. However, that is my opinion. They look less overbought than the NASDAQ. Next, we're going to show some issues that we typically show on these Wednesday streams. Probably part of the reason they get demonetized because, ooh, look out, folks, a bunch of cold, hard facts. So first we'll show Bitcoin as reported by Coinmetrics. And the reason that we report the exchange with crypto is because there is no consensus as to how often to update the data. So when we show crypto, we always call out the exchange because the volume data can be jacked up. The volume data can be all over the place. And this chart doesn't look like it shows volume data. So that helps. Volume is just simply the amount of trading that's happening in a given day, like the number of... Normally, volume data is number of shares traded, but because crypto isn't shares, the volume data represents something else, and different exchanges update the volume data differently. So we always call out the exchange because those who know what they're talking about know about the volume data and how the exchange reports it. So that's why I always say the exchange. That's all. Bitcoin now pretty high here at 29,000. Well off of its all-time highs, which were 67,000 plus. That's a 5-year. So there's the 1 year. So that's Bitcoin over the last year. And next we'll show the second largest. We will show Ethereum, also from Coinmetrics. And by the way, if I were heavily invested in crypto, this would be the one that I would be in, Ethereum, because it does have to do with the infrastructure. And just a little bit about that. Now, a lot of people think that there is intrinsic value in cryptocurrency. I disagree. I believe there is intrinsic liability in cryptocurrency because what happens if all the power shuts off? What if there's a huge grid implosion, right? How much is your crypto worth then? It's simply a speculative investment, folks. It's like a stock that's not even part of a company. It's just a bunch of ones and zeros. Its value is attributed to whatever people believe its value is. It is a speculative investment that completely lacks intrinsic value, but instead has intrinsic liability because it requires several computers in order to even calculate its existence. In order to exist, it requires 9 computers? And if you think it's some way to make your transactions untrackable, it's the exact opposite of that. It makes your transactions more trackable because all of those ledger lines have to be on each of the 9 computers. It doesn't have intrinsic value. It has intrinsic liability. So, I mean, it's been used repeatedly to catch criminals who thought they could somehow, use crypto to launder money and to do transactions for criminal behavior. It's idiotic. It's just ignorant people who don't understand the technology or the word intrinsic value, I guess. It's intrinsic liability, folks, not intrinsic value. So, and it's not money, and it's never going to be money because it's never going to have intrinsic value. It's always going to have intrinsic liability. Money is things like gold and silver and not much else. Because to be money, it has to have intrinsic value and it has to be fungible. Crypto's fungible, no intrinsic value. Just like currency, regular fiat currency, US dollars. No intrinsic value, not fungible. Silver and gold have intrinsic value. They can be you can use silver as solder. You can use gold as circuitry, jewelry. You can use silver and gold as collectibles. You can melt it down and make it into other forms. If you have a 1 ounce gold coin and you cut it in half, now you have 2 1/2 ounce pieces of gold. It seems simple to understand, but people do not seem to understand. So anyway, that's Ethereum. And since we showed the 5-year chart of Bitcoin, I guess it's only fair to show the 5-year chart of Ethereum. You'll probably find they are very similar, as they were probably peaking on the exact same date. The peak of that was $4,342 back on Halloween, the Halloween sell-off. And just give that a minute to load here. There we go. And you see it is a very similar chart to both Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, of course, being so low in price, it's going to have a little more volatility on the short term. This is a feature also present in penny stocks. And once again, since we showed the 5-year chart of Bitcoin and Ethereum, There's the 1 year of Stellar Lumens. Here is the 5 year of Stellar Lumens. Oh, wow. This one peaked on May 9th, 2021. Interesting. And not surprisingly, it was at another peak there on Halloween of that same year. But its real peak was at, what did it get to? 68 cents. We can round that to 69. 68 cents, we'll say. We'll truncate the decimal. 68 cents at market close. Now, I want to show a couple more issues here because I did notice another interesting one, and that would be silver. So silver is at a shockingly low level here. Let me just say again, that's not investment advice. But check it out. Silver here looks extremely underbought at only $22.45 per ounce. That seems insanely low. And drop us a line if you remember back in 2020 on March 15th, a day I'll remember well, when silver dropped below $12 per ounce during the trading day. It did close at $12.38. And I believe perhaps one of our viewers even doubled her money when it came to silver. So $22.45 an ounce for silver here. And we'll also show gold. Gold looks similarly underbought, although it is at $1,922, $1,922.90 an ounce. So there it is on the short term. Here is the 5 year. And it is kind of near its highs. The most recent high here was, wow, $2,026 there at market close on April 2nd. So that is the NASDAQ, S&P, Dow, gold, silver, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Stellar Lumens. And let me go see if I can find some more news stories here before we close this mother out. We're going to go to CBSNews.com. The original fake news. And I'm just putting the headset back on again here just in case we get some accidental audio playing through. So what do we got here? What do we got? Now, of course, there were a lot of complaints at the Maui wildfire where people said alarms didn't go off, but they should have. So that is a concern. I mean, I would say with respect to issues such as that, maybe look out the window every once in a while. You know, if you notice that your neighborhood is slowly becoming engulfed in flames, maybe evacuate at that point. That might be wise. But yes, for some reason there were issues with the disaster preparedness. So, like, sirens didn't go off, and there are some bad folks around on planet Earth right now. And, you know, on that note, I would say believe in something, because if you don't believe in something, you'll probably fall for anything. There is no substitute for certain institutions which have all been undermined, horribly, horribly undermined, to the point where people don't trust them, and rightly so, due to the past 3 years on the pathetic state of planet Earth. Truly a pathetic state of humanity, at least. Nature is not interested in killing you, folks, because humanity is just self-destructing. So, you know, a common quote that I quote all the time from Sun Tzu in The Art of War is, if your enemy is self-destructing, don't interrupt them. Let them finish self-destructing and then reevaluate whether you should attack. Because if you attack a self-destructing enemy, that enemy might stop self-destructing, figure out a way to rally and unite, and beat you. If they're doing really dumb stuff, they're throwing virgins in the volcano, or they're scrubbing non-pollutant trace gases from the air, which are at the base of all food chains on Earth. If they're doing stuff like that, if you want to see them go down, don't interrupt them. Let them do it, because if you interrupt them, they might figure out a way to stop self-destructing and start destructing you. Yes, and sorry about the loading. It does occasionally occur during these live streams. They are not typically a result of our internet connection, although sometimes they could be. We've heard reports that, they're caused by the YouTube end of things. A lot of servers have to come together in order to make these live streams happen. So we don't complain about it too much. YouTube is YouTube claims to be encouraging people to live stream more on their platform. And we were even going to make our daily space weather videos live, but there are some features that have raised our views by about 60,000 views per month that would not be available if we live stream the videos. So in order to bring affiliates on, in order to pay us to advertise their products, we don't want to reduce our views by 65,000 views a month in order to do the daily space weather videos live. So we would do it. They would occasionally be demonetized for absolutely no reason, so that doesn't help things either, as we are monetarily incentivized to put out content. And if you think it's a lot, it's almost nothing. It's low enough that we don't even get paid every month. So if that gives you some insight into it, it's maybe we ought to put out some more propaganda, fraud, and nonsense and misrepresentation of material facts, whether intentional or unintentional. Maybe that would get us to six-figure viewers. I guess we would anticipate getting to five-figure viewers first, or perhaps even 5,000 viewers first. And the channel, by the way, has been monetized since, I think, 2018. One day, maybe we'll reach 4,000 viewers. Fingers crossed, folks. Oh, it's going to be such a milestone. Oh, 4,000 viewers. We'll be like, dude, I'm going to be able to reach my goal of retiring before age 50. All right, what do we have here? What do we have? Oh my God. Speak of the devil. She's brought up the viewer with the constant Jesus quotes. Oh my God. The chat is now cursed. Thanks a lot, Kimberly. You're doing a fine job there. A fine job. Kimberly Nichols, everyone. Follow her on Facebook, as she uses 6 gallons of paint per painting. Just kidding, Kimberly. You know I love your paintings. Especially the raspberry s'mores. Ooh, that sounds delicious. So, inside joke, folks, I like to go on Facebook and create titles for Kimberly's paintings because I see things. I see things. Hallucinogenic drugs not required. Hallucinogenic drugs not required to see the things. Go check it out. Yeah, we've got 2 Facebook accounts. There is a Smash-O-Mash Facebook account, and there's even a group called Entropy Busters. Approximately 1.6 people per post actually see the posts, because the state of censorship on Facebook is similarly pathetic to the state of censorship on Meta and indeed on Google platforms. So there's that. All right, what else do we have here? Maui survivors Maui wildfire survivors said they had to fend for themselves in the aftermath of that ridiculous mishandled situation. Wall-to-wall mishandling. Another interesting news story. Somebody survived. Somebody had a functioning pig kidney. Yeah, somebody had a pig kidney transplanted into her, and it worked for a month. How you like them apples? Did that make you hungry for Kimberly's spilled sausages? Or perhaps a BLT? Did you know pickleball's a pro sport? There's an important headline, a huge headline on CBS News. Pickleball is a pro sport. Also, DNA from a 5,000-year-old glacial mummy turns out to be Anatolian. He was from, I think that's Spain. Yeah. He had dark skin, dark hair, and brown eyes. All right. Target's sales slump in the second quarter, with executives pointing to the backlash about their promotion of Pride. Yeah, the rainbow flag. All right, let's see what we got in science news here, as it is about time to close this thing out. If there's anything else you'd like me to rant about, let us know in the comments, and I'll consider it. Oh, no. All right, good. The ad is already muted. Here's the thing that's not news on SciTech Daily. Electromagnetic waves interact in groundbreaking experiment. Who didn't think electromagnetic waves interact? I don't know why that needed a study or an article. Somebody just figured this out. They were like, Eureka! Electromagnetic waves interact. Who knew? Besides anybody who took physics too. All right, what else do we have? Scientists transforming flies into plastic. New research reduces uncertainty in future climate change. All right. What about a Herbig-Haro object? Herbig-Haro 46/47. By the way, Herbig-Haro objects are areas where new stars and or planets are believed to be forming. They're typically around very naughty nebulae where there's a lot of activity and very dense gas plumes and so forth. I guess I'll have to show you this article because it's got some spectacular imagery from James Webb. So let me put this in my other browser here and then share. So here's a great example of a Herbig-Haro object, referred to by some as a stellar nursery, that image from the James Webb Space Telescope. And I think that's a great one to maybe close out the video on. Oh, it goes great with my background, too. How you like that? It perfectly matches there. That's just splentacular. So, yeah, I think it's time to close this thing out. I think I've ranted enough and given out enough facts about things that the video will stay demonetized for like 2 weeks, and then YouTube will send a notification saying, hey, congratulations, now that it's not live anymore for 2 weeks, your video's been remonetized. Oh, thanks. Always just a delight. Just a delight. So yeah, that's probably an unprecedentedly detailed image there by the James Webb. And let's actually zoom in a little bit closer here on this. Since I have it in this sort of small format, we usually show these things full screen. Some massive filaments there. Looking like they're perhaps maybe connecting those stars? I'm not sure. There could be some filamentary interactions there between multiple stars in that nebulous cloud. I'm not sure what chemicals are represented in that one. Let's take a look. All right, so that is a tightly bound pair of actively forming stars known as Herbig-Haro 46/47. It is in infrared light, which is what the James Webb is for. And they're surrounded by a disk of gas and dust that continues to add to their mass. So that's an interesting one in that, we're not exactly sure whether the sun, the solar system, indeed the galaxy, is actually gaining or losing mass. So there must be an indication there that those stars are siphoning mass out of those nebular clouds. Not always the case. Sometimes stars seem to be putting out material. Sometimes they seem to be taking in material. And I just wanted to see if it was going to tell me the chemical components there. Oh, it looks like there's a higher res image here. Let's change that out. Oh man, that is freaking sweet. That is some spectacular detail, folks. And of course, it looks like most of this material is associated with that central star, but I think maybe 2 other stars they're forming. Not so sure it's what you'd call a trinary system. I don't think that's exactly what's going on. However, those stars may be interacting with each other via their plasma outputs. Keep in mind, all rotating objects precess. So that affects things the way that their jets are putting out material. Let's shrink that down a little bit. Dag, that is some splentacular imagery. That is a good one. We showed one this morning also. If you didn't see this morning's space weather video, make sure you check that out. And we're going to close this thing out. Once again, thanks to everybody who joined us, left comments, etc. Hi to Nay. No, we haven't blocked you. And a little bit about the channel. We don't block anybody. We don't mute comments. We don't erase comments. Sometimes YouTube erases comments. We never erase comments. It is not a thing. We are free speech purists on the channel. We are against all censorship. All legal speech is encouraged. However, you may be berated if you say something idiotic. So that's the danger you face, folks. You want free speech? You might say something moronic. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. So yeah, we don't erase comments. We don't block anybody. There are plenty of YouTube channels that are competitors to ours who spend countless hours blocking users. And what happens on YouTube, if you are blocked, you will be able to see your comment and nobody else will. It's just ridiculous. It should at least tell you that your comments have been blocked by the user so you can go create another account and then go back and then leave the comment that you wanted to leave. So yeah, we don't erase comments. We don't block anybody. We don't mute, ban anybody. It's just not a thing. It's not a thing. So there are 0 accounts blocked on YouTube. There are 0 accounts blocked on Twitter. There are 0 accounts blocked on Facebook. And just a little bit about how the channel came about. Back in the mid-1990s when I took college astronomy, I realized that there is a huge hole in cosmology. So astronomy class, college astronomy, I thought there'd be a huge section about heliophysics, and there wasn't. It was evident that there were problems with the understanding of how the sun works. And as a result, I'm back. So I'm back. I almost majored in cosmology. Instead, I took most of the classes for psychology, 83% of the course material for a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology, and then I got out of there because I couldn't take it anymore. Once again, I saw the writing on the walls when it came to college, and I said, there are things that I have to do, like become a pro athlete. So that was what I did. I pursued pro cycling, but now I'm back because of the niche that I've found when it comes to space weather. And of course, it's getting more and more important as we get more and more likely to see more and more private space flights. Of course, the latest of which was Virgin Galactic. So this is going to become less and less expensive, just like a personal computer, folks. It's going to be a regular old everyday vacation in less than a decade. And so we've positioned ourselves in the realm of space weather, not just for that reason, but also to sort of help advance the science. We're interested in things like a unified theory of physics, and with all of the rewrites that are about to come to heliophysics and their implications on cosmology. Did you know that October 1st, 2023 marks the 10-year anniversary of a very important science paper? Our regular viewers would know all about it. I won't bring it up in this video, so that's a teaser to tune in next time. And I am out. So thanks again, viewers. We'll see you soon here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.